Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tech Leaders Unplugged. And today we are getting unplugged with our guest, PD or Prithvi Dhelia, Senior Software Engineer at Qualtrics. So, Prithvi, thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here and talk on some of the interesting
Perfect.
subjects.
Perfect. Awesome. And thank you, Wade, as ever, for graciously co hosting the show. And well, let's get it started. Let's get unplugged. And then, of course, let's start with you, PD. Tell us a little bit about your background, your experience, anything you want to say about yourself so that the viewers can know who you are. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a software engineer, as you said. I work at Qualtrics. I've always been super passionate about technology. I was the kid. I think I got my first computer. My uncle gifted it to me when I was 8 years old, and I started using Excel, writing formulas. That was to order pizzas for at scale. So that was the idea. We I was in a boarding school. We used to every odd Sunday we'd get this opportunity to be able to order like a Domino's or something like that. Wasn't easy to order it for like 100 people or so, at once, writing down in paper, getting all things wrong. So made an Excel for that. And, that's when I discovered like, how much more, how you can achieve efficiency. I think the journey never stopped, but I didn't really know how to make a career out of it, until, later I went to college. So I did that at Purdue in Indiana, and then I worked a couple of years at Microsoft, and now I'm here at Qualtrics.
Perfect. Thank you so much, PD, for telling us about a little bit about you. Now, let's tell us a little bit about Qualtrics. What is the company's value proposition? What problem are you solving? Can you elaborate about a little bit about Qualtrics, please?
Yes, absolutely. So Qualtrics is a company that is one of the pioneers of a space called experience management. At the core of it, we try to gather data and sentiment from the customers through surveys and other means, and then turn it into actionable items for that the enterprises can act upon. So, for instance, you're an airline business. At the end of your journey, you're collecting feedback from the customers, and you try to assess, like give a rating to what the experience was like, and really it's all about making software more human and making those experiences great. As our company, like we often hear this, in our ethos is, how can we turn customers into ambassadors and brands into religion. So that's the core of where we are at Qualtrics. Myself, particularly, I work in the access control space, and also work on several technologies catered specifically to enterprises.
Thank you again, PD. So, okay, now let's move on to the topic of today's conversation. So, the topic as chosen by you is scalable enterprise features. So, we're going to be discussing empowering big brands with innovative solutions. So, tell us, why did you choose this particular topic and why did you feel it was relevant for today's day and age?
Yes, absolutely. When we talk about scaling, I think scaling is the crux of core of every business, so to speak. When you think about what exactly is scaling, it's the ability for you to be able to handle large volumes of customer interactions, whether it's online, offline, and just being able to do things at scale where your costs are not growing proportionally to the increase in customers, so as to cause a greater impact with fewer resources, or to increase, so to speak, for the company, like the margins and so on and so forth. So scaling, I think, is very, very crucial because it's one of the things that make or break your organization every time you hit that influx point. When you're a small company, you make all the strides possible to penetrate the market, and you do custom solutions, you do a lot of hand holding, and as soon as you find your groove, you start to see rise in demand. That's when you need to shift gears and try to simplify things, go back to the whiteboard and try to scale things much more. And that really ends up defining your journey through that process, really ends up defining how you fare down the road. Why is particularly for enterprises? I think my experience over the past through my entire career has been in the enterprise space, and I think it is meaningful enough to touch upon because it's a little bit different from when you look at the consumer business. When you look at enterprises, you may be building, a story that comes to my mind. So I live in Seattle area, and once I had the opportunity to visit the Boeing facility. And towards the end of, they do a little tour. Towards the end of the tour, the guy told us, every single aircraft you see out there that is being built but not ready to fly is already sold. So that's the essence of enterprise business. You are oftentimes building things or trying to scale things because of something that you may have already sold, or the needs of your existing customers have evolved, and you want to be able to meet that demand. You have to be able to meet that increase without causing any impact to existing clients, and ensuring that you have a smooth experience even as you continue to grow larger. So that's the reason that I feel like it's meaningful enough to touch upon the subject. And you run into interesting challenges as you go along. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions that you have.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, before I jump into something else, Wade, do you have anything for PD right now?
Yeah, I understand Qualtrics is in the customer feedback space, and I saw a lot of your products are tied to in the digital journey, whether it's an e-commerce site and you know maybe it's basket analysis where they're putting things in a basket or they're looking at things but never put it in a basket, and those kind of things are of course valuable to understand the usability of the site. I'm always intrigued in where the physical world is going in that space because obviously we depend on a lot of surveys that are sometimes very distant from the time of between the experience to the time you're filling that in. Do you see any trends in technology where, like, say, I just flew on an airplane and I flew from LA to Chicago, and your customer is United Airlines, right? And then I get off the plane. Is there anything that's prompting people to get that feedback, whether it's a text message or a Bluetooth messaging or something that prompts that person to say, hey, how was your experience? So that when they sit down, they can, and maybe they had a bad situation or maybe a great situation. Do you see any trends like that in your space of feedback and customer experience?
Yes, absolutely. So, you hit, this is a great question. And especially, as more and more businesses go online, in some ways, it's also harder to establish, for an e-commerce website, for instance. I own, on the side, I have my own e-commerce business. And, when the sales are going up or going down, you don't necessarily see an indication to what may have changed. It could be the online algorithms have changed or so on and so forth. And it's very unlike having a physical retail store where someone walks into your store and you can look at their face and try to gather the emotion, or have a conversation with them, stop and ask them or something like that, or put up a big banner of, hey, there's a big sale going on. But if someone's not even going to come to your website, how do you even display that? Speaking in terms of like an example, in the digital space of what companies are trying to do is try to collect as much feedback like you would in a physical setting, but without causing a lot of user intervention. So, oftentimes you'd see towards the end of your journey that, how is your flight and everything like that. But if your airline taxied in time and everything like that, you are ready to go. You may not even look at your screen wanting to fill that out. So how can you do that through the transaction? So one of the examples is, I think, imagine that you're going to a Starbucks, and every time you go to a Starbucks, maybe there is an app. You try to collect rating, and make it as easy as possible, like a touch about it, like maybe just a thumbs up or thumbs down without having to write too much. And mine that data, so you keep gathering that data. And maybe that you went to a different location. For instance, you've been going to a one in Chicago, but now you choose that you want to go one in Michigan, and all of a sudden you end up getting a lower, you giving a lower rating. And all of that data can be mined and cross-referenced between locations. And maybe there is something else going on. maybe you try to also pair it, where Qualtrics really tries to stand out, and the whole experience management is also tries to combine the effect of customer experience along with employee experience. So maybe there's also employees at that particular location who've been complaining about being short on supplies or being short on resources, and that is correlating with the fact that you had a less than optimal experience when you went to the Michigan store. So those are some of the things that also feedback in terms of not just always directly asking the customer, but check analyzing the speed. Let's say you are a store. There is a speed score that you calculate how quickly you can go in and check out, and also how much information is available, how much time people are spending on each page. So I think it's the whole ecosystem of trying to line up all of those factors, because oftentimes it's very hard to pinpoint one particular factor, but when you look at the whole picture, you try to get an idea of where things are headed.
Great. Um, on the given the topic, we're talking about scalable enterprise features, and that really drives product development. Obviously, as you're adding features and you're evaluating those experiences, not only is your product built for customer experiences, but you have to do that yourself in your own features for your application. Obviously, tell me a little bit about how this world of big data and AI is driving some of the feature thought about your applications, and what practices around product development would you say that have been novel and interesting where you've been?
Yes, absolutely. So I can speak on behalf of Qualtrics, and also like the value proposition of why customers are drawn to Qualtrics. You may have seen the traditional ways of development, where you go to the whiteboard. There's a problem that a group of people come together and they try to give a best shot, come up with an MVP, ship it out of the door, and then collect feedback and then iterate on it. I think the world is evolving and getting trying to get ahead of the curve. Is can we do that process instead of doing that after? Can we prepone that? Can we do that before and try and collect meaningful data to tell us what we should be going towards next? So, for example, when you integrate experience or gathering feedback, we also have a product line like product experience. So I'll give you an example of what product experience would look like. It's specifically meant for companies doing product development, but it's not maybe ready to the market yet. So for example, you look at the Pfizer vaccine. It's going through clinical trials. It's being tested upon in the real world, and the customers are being prompted through their preferred way of communication, making it as easy of what they're feeling, maybe after an hour, after 2 hours, after a day, what needs to change, and taking that into account as you are shaping the product, as opposed to you try to get quickly to the market, fail fast, and collect feedback, and then go on and so forth. So when you look at it, it really depends. In the healthcare industry, this can make huge strides, because the time to market is much longer. You don't really have a mechanism that you can just go in and fail fast. You want to get it right, and you want to get it out there safely. So those are some of the things that are being shaped. Is try and stay ahead of the curve, know what the customer really wants, and integrate that into your pipeline, into your continuous delivery pipeline, as opposed to getting something out there and then going back to the whiteboard, tweaking things.
Great. Go ahead, Carlos, if you have a question.
Yes, Wade. Thank you. Okay, so well, we're one of the things that we're discussing today is innovative solutions, right? So, but we're also mainly about enterprise. But in terms of the customer front lines, let's call it that, right? So, what sort of innovation initiatives are currently in place, or in the front burner, or in the middle burner, that are going to allow or diminish, or even make disappear any kind of friction, with the customer service teams and all that. So how is this going to what's going on in terms of innovation that is going to make frictions go away?
I think as we've all seen, like the big trend towards finding the applicability of Gen AI. I think that's one of the streams for sure. Is how do when if you go back a few decades, everything was based on human interaction, and then
Mhm.
from there on you try to move towards software and you're trying to automate things and standardize things. And as you try want to scale, you tend to simplify, right? You're trying to give that standard experience but at a really high scale, but somewhere through that process the personalized touch may get lost, or that human intervention, that dialogue that you have may get lost. Through the power of something like Gen AI, what a lot of companies across the board are trying to go towards is, can we make this conversational, as opposed to giving you a wizard of, you go in, you follow this big laundry list of items to set something up like a dashboard or a survey. Can we make it conversational, based on, there's something going on, you're feeding data, you have an event coming up, and you led through conversations, you're able to manage some of those experiences, like, okay, maybe you want to spin up a survey, maybe you want to collect feedback. So make it as human as possible. I think that companies who are able to do that will definitely make a huge stride, doing things at scale, but at the same time trying to bring back a little bit of that touch of conversation, so that you can sense better before things happen. So I think that's one of the biggest things. To give you a more specific example, again, as I said, like you have an event, you have a conversational AI, and as things go wrong, the AI is also able to detect anomalies, based on your conversation, based on natural language processing. It's able to tell whether or not how your emotions are lining up, and that way it can offer you better suggestions, because it's a whole journey. You mine data, you try to make decisions from that data, and you may not get everything right, and that's okay. But as long as that feedback is now being put back into the pipeline, and then you're cross-referencing across other areas, that's what's going to make a real difference. I can also speak about how it's unlocking, as you said, for customer experience. uh, it takes the traditional way, or at least what it is right now for large companies, is that you identify the issue, there are certain steps you follow for troubleshooting, and then you try to get on a conversation, on a call with the human rep, and report it, or so on, or file a ticket. But now that process can be automated. You're in a conversation with the bot, and they're able to mine this data, they're able to analyze the data, and they're able to detect and collect feedback on your behalf as well, through the part of that conversation. So that's in the customer space. Also in the employee space, because employee surveys is also another big tool that we sell to enterprises. Is that are there other means to identify? You may not be so keen on submitting feedback and putting in data every month or every couple of months, because not a lot may have changed about your job. So what you do is, are there indicators? Is there data that you can use based on the conversations that you're having, based on the energy levels? Are there things that can be used automatically to detect what your sentiment is like, and be able to predict how long you may want to work at the company? So those are some of the things. They're super early, but obviously a lot depends on the privacy and security concerns of not just of customers, of employees, of how you can use their data. So I think that is another very, very essential topic, because there's a lot you can do with it, but you also want to be mindful of the ethical code of conduct and what you're collecting, because at the end of the day, you're just a custodian of the data, but you have to realize it's still owned by the enterprise and ultimately the frontline user.
Great, great, great. Thank you so much. Wade, back to you, please.
Yeah. So I wanted to pivot a little bit away from the company and just talking about you a little bit. I noticed in your background, you're an Army reservist. So, of course, thank you for your service to the military in the U.S. Um, I come across a lot of folks in the military that are looking to get into tech. And, I have, although I've worked as a civilian in the DoD for many years, 13, 14 years as a civilian throughout my career. And so I have a perspective from that side. I've never really been enlisted. And so, can you tell me a little bit about how the military supported you and shaped your technical career, and what you were able to leverage in your time in the military for some of those folks that are either in the military or just kind of coming out of
Right. Yeah. Again, leading back to a topic, I think my biggest takeaway was, uh, you know, being a part of an organization that is huge. The processes that are in place, a lot of them are still relevant. Of being able to move masses, and the impact that you want to be able to create. So one of my biggest takeaway was from the military was just the power that collaboration can unlock. You and the power of efficiency. So when you try to do things at scale, that's really what it boils down to. You can throw 100 people in a room without any sort of efficiency and get nothing done. But at the same time, you can, if you have the right processes in place, yeah, you can churn great results just within a couple of minutes. So that's been my biggest takeaway. The military, of course, I'm very grateful. It's been very supportive and fortunate. Uh, in my education as well. So I enrolled at the time. I was pursuing my major at Purdue, and then it allowed me to uh, think beyond, and bringing some of those aspects of, let's say, discipline and those kind of things back into. And at the time, I remember when I was in the army. I just finished my term, but when I was in the army, I was working on the SAP portal that they were trying to roll out. And one of the things that I remember is, I was very excited to finally being working in the back end of things. So my job was to basically use their portal and manage supplies and those kind of things, and also being able to write code. So that was one of the first times that I was doing it at a very big platform. And I realized, someone told me, you're going to be working on the latest system. And I looked at that system, and that system was at best 15 years old.
it.
And my biggest learning over there that came about is, it's one thing to get something out there, but it's another thing to drive adoption. And the more you think about it, it goes back to some of the things that we touch upon: security and compliance. As you tend to scale, you have to be very, very mindful of, are you handling data the right way? Do you have the right security measures in place? Because you're trying to grow fast, be out there, have the competitive edge, but you need to ensure that the things are safe, and you have the security measures in place. And that's one of the reasons where you see large organizations. You look at healthcare, you look at military, technology is still not broken in that deeply to unlock like the great potential, just because of we haven't answered every single question to how to keep the data safe. And that was the pivotal concern. So you're not going to find cutting edge technology. You're going to find some things written back in the day, 15, 20 years old, but it works. And it that teaches you something, that you want to build systems. And when you're selling to enterprises, you don't want to just do things quickly. You want to build systems that they're going to bank upon for decades. That's, and keep innovating at the same time. So you need to have a delivery pipeline where you can ship things quicker, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be changing a lot at the same time.
Excellent.
Great. Thank you so much, Petey. We're coming up on time, so unfortunately, time flies when you're having fun. So, I want to thank you. Before anything else, I want to thank you for having been with us on the show today, and I'm sure that viewers are going to find a lot of your insights about what you shared about Qualtrics, and I'm sure there's going to be quite a few of our viewers are going to be interested in how to stop customer issues from becoming lost revenue, right? So that being said, the next thing for me is thank you, big time, but don't go. Please stay with us as we go off the air. I have a quick announcement to make, and that is next week we're going to be speaking with our next guest is going to be Charles Payne, the CTO, CISO of Neptune Media. And the topic is going to be securing tomorrow, today, exploring cybersecurity's cutting edge. So that's what we're going to be having, featuring next week, right here on Tech Leaders Unplugged, as ever, at 9:30 p.m. Pacific on November the 6th. And with this being said, again, thank you, PD. Thank you, Wade.
Sure.
See you next time right here on Tech Leaders Unplugged.
Thank you so much.